Well, here we are jumping back into Superman, the animated series, starting off with the first episode of the third season. And it turns out Roz from Frasier is Volcana. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the show. So glad to see you all once again. And if you're new here, thanks for stopping by. This is the show that you're looking for if you enjoy cartoons from the 80s and 90s. Then you've picked a great time to jump in because right now we're just getting ready to start off the third season of Superman the Animated Series. And today we're talking about Where There's Smoke, which originally aired on September 19th, 1998. So I gotta admit, I didn't have a lot of hope for this episode. Maybe it was just coming off the new Batman Adventures, or maybe it was just the description of this episode that, oh, we have a villain up against Superman and they punch each other and it's going to be a fight. Oh, woo. But I actually was surprised at how much I liked this episode. But we're going to talk all about that right after our 60-second Brainiac Bomb rundown of the episode. I'm going to give you a complete synopsis in 60 seconds or less, or else that's going to explode. Here we go. Clark and Jimmy are at this exclusive event where there is a bunch of artifacts of sailing and nautical stuff. And this woman that is able to get in, even though all the other guests can't, she comes in, starts a fire with her hands, and the place erupts in flames. And she steals a bunch of stuff. And Superman changes and comes in there and just trying to save everybody, trying to save her. And she shoots him with fire. And then they all get out. And then Superman starts doing some poking around, and he's being followed. And he tries to go to this place to get some more information, and they won't let him in. They're hiding something, and then he's being tailed by some people, and then this guy goes and takes off his disguise, works for this secret government agency. So Superman starts doing a little bit more checking around, goes into this school for paranormal children, and starts asking around about if they knew of this person that had this fire ability. And he goes, oh, actually, I think I did. And meanwhile, then the Volcana is trying to sell the goods that she got at the museum and was unable to do so. And so then the government agency comes in to beep, bop, beep, bop, beep. This one, yeah, not a lot of hope for this one. So she gets captured, and Superman overhears Jimmy and Lois talking about this flame retardant stuff that was found in this apartment. And so he goes and uncovers a secret government agency underneath the ground and goes in there and finds out that they're trying to use her as a weapon to serve their own purposes. Superman breaks in, and she finally is able to break out of this oxygen suppressing tank and start a fire. And Superman is able to capture her and stop them, and then it delivers her to this deserted island and delivers her peanut butter. I don't know why I looked. It's blew up. So I didn't have a lot of hope for this episode. It on the surface, it appears to be another superpower going up against Superman. But there's actually a really, really cool story involved in this. But it doesn't start out that way. Is that we have this event and people are trying to get in and they can't. And then this woman walks up there and is able to get in. And I thought, is this like a poison ivy thing? Is she able to seduce people into getting her way? And she gets in there and it's this huge setup. She goes into the back room and changes and then starts this fire and a big to-do, and then just starts robbing the place. And I thought, oh, here we go. It's another thief with a gimmick that Superman's going to have to bring down. But it's after that the episode gets more interesting. And I do have to say that in switching back between Batman and Superman, one of the challenges is to see Superman for what it is. It is a different type of show. Superman is a different type of hero than Batman, and you got to take him for what it is. And Superman, the animated series, and the character is more action-driven, more adventure, power, punching things. And so I'm trying to look at and observe these episodes in that light versus expecting it to feel like a Batman episode. So one of those things is to appreciate the things that Superman does. And one of the things is when the building is on fire, he picks up this propeller and spins it to shoot water into the fire, which I thought was great. I thought that was a cool way of putting out the fire rather than just blowing it out or something like that. Now, having said that, there are elements of this episode that did remind me of a Batman episode. And one of those was this kind of mystery of Clark being followed and a guy in a disguise that was trailing him. And yeah, that's a very Batman kind of element to it. But I really like that. It was neat to go, okay, who's this guy? What's this mystery going on? Why is he being followed? And then he gets in an elevator and disappears. Or not an elevator, a phone booth and disappears. Maybe he meets up with Doctor Who. I don't know. Another little interesting Easter egg is when Superman first goes into this paranormal school institute, there's some drawings of Superman on the wall that kids have made. And one of those, if you look closely, is the ape from Monkey Time, Monkey Fun, Skippy, Mickey, Bim Bim, Bobo, Shoopy Doop, whatever his name is. You can see his drawing. That for such a ridiculous episode, this is the second or third Easter egg that I can think of where that episode's referenced. And I don't know if it's just a matter of that they knew it was ridiculous, so they keep bringing it up. And that brings me to the other element of this episode, which is kind of odd, is the more you look at it, there's quite a bit of similarities in this episode to Marvel. And one of those is this superpowered paranormal school or institute lab that they have here for gifted youngsters. No, they don't call them that. But it is a very X-Men Professor Xavier's school-esque place where these kids are kind of developing their skills. And in fact, the director of the place is not in a wheelchair, but he is bald. It was almost like too obvious that they were pulling from X-Men. And at this point, let's see, this was 98. The animated series of X-Men was out and probably popular. So I don't know if they're borrowing some of those influences, or again, if this is something that's referenced in the comic books that I'm not thinking of, please let me know. Which, by the way, I didn't realize this as I was watching it, but I looked it up. The director is voiced by William H. Macy. It seems so random. I don't know if he was not as big of a name then. I think that would cost quite a bit to get him in an episode like this. But speaking of voice actors, we also have Volcana, who I recognize the voice, and it took me, I don't know, a third or halfway through the episode before I could figure it out, that it's Roz from Frasier, which I should have guessed right away because she sounds exactly like Roz. She's not doing a voice, not playing a different character. It is almost just comical to listen to her because it is Roz. That's her. Yes, as a Batman fan, there are elements in this episode that made me feel more like it was a Batman episode, but I also felt like there was a lot of influence from Max Fletcher. There was just different pockets and moments in this episode, especially when he went down into that underground secret government lab and they had her hooked up into this machine and the helmets on. It just very much felt like Max Fletcher, like that mad scientist kind of feel to the Max Fletcher cartoons. And I think that only helped this episode and kind of drew me in more and going, oh, this is pretty good. This isn't just Superman punching things, but he had to do a little bit more detective work. And we got to see him using his reporter skills to try to figure out what's going on. And another similarity to Marvel is this government agency that to me felt a little bit like S.H.I.E.L.D., where we had, in fact, the leader of the agency had a patch over his eye, Nick Fury moonlighting, running this other agency. And then we also had in that group, and I don't know if they just couldn't come up with enough dynamic to these guys, or if they were trying to build out something else, or if there was, again, there's a history in the comic books, but we had the guy with the handlebar mustache and the bowler hat, which is the look of the Dum Dum Dungaree. What's his name? Dum Dum Dugan, right? Dum Dum Dugan, which was kind of odd. And they just, and then you start looking through the group, you pick out and go, oh yeah, that's that guy, that's that guy. So again, I don't know if that was deliberate, if they were kind of thumbing their nose at Marvel or trying to deliberately pull from them, or these influences kind of crept into their psyche and they didn't know it, but it was a little too obvious for me. So yeah, I think the mystery of this was really neat. I like the, even though there's similarities to S.H.I.E.L.D. or X-Men in there, I like those elements. I like that government agency, secret government agency trailing Clark and him trying to figure out what's going on with that. I like the elements with Volcana that she was part of this group and was used as a weapon and is now trying to get out from under them and doesn't know what else to do, so she becomes a thief. And it kind of justifies that kind of weak opening of going, oh, she's Firestarter that can steal things. So it could be argued that I like this episode because it's more like Batman, but I think that this is what makes it interesting. Is Volcana's not just a villain doing bad and has to go head to head with Superman, and the biggest question being, well, how's Superman going to stop her? He's got to put out all these fires and blow things. I shouldn't say that. There was more of a story around that. And then we still got to see Superman versus fire. So we got that element as well. But I would like someone to explain to me what happened at the end. They go into this lab, they shut it down, Superman takes her away, and then she's on this deserted island. And he's bringing her peanut butter. And he explains that it sure beats prison, but is this her prison? I mean, she still robbed a bunch of places. She still did criminal acts, and I get that they probably couldn't put her in prison. They'd have to put her in a more high security prison that with a lot of sprinklers or something. Or if they are going to hold her captive somewhere else, it feels like a desert island is probably not the best place. Like that feels, I mean, she's just laying out on the beach. And to have Superman hand delivering food to you, how bad can this be? If it is a form of prison, then it should be like something unpleasant, like Rora Pente from Star Trek. There's an obscure reference. Cabin out in the middle of Antarctica or something. Or maybe I missed something. Is she supposed to be in prison? So when it comes time to rank this episode, like I said, it was a lot better than I expected. I was already preparing myself to be kind of further down on the list, but there was enough of the things that make Superman different, but also enough of the elements that I enjoy about Batman and just in story in general, just a mystery and more engaging and not really a twist, but just a different perspective or different way of looking at this villain versus, her just being bad and doing bad things. But, she was taken by this agency to be made a weapon. So just some other interesting elements. I think that the similarities to some of the elements of Marvel maybe knocked it a little bit further down on there. And like I said, the ending was just kind of didn't make a lot of sense unless I'm misinterpreting it. Taking all those things into consideration, this falls at the number 13 spot of my favorite episodes. I honestly started at the top of the list and started working my way down and thought that it was going to land somewhere in the top 10, to be honest with you. But as I was reading through the list, that's a pretty solid top 10 list. Not saying that nothing will beat them out, but there's a lot of great episodes in that list. It falls below Little Girl Lost because I think the introduction of Supergirl, one, is a very important story. Although I wanted that one to rank higher, she's just such an interesting character. Different role that Superman plays in her life kind of put that episode a little bit higher on the list than this one. But I do have this one beating out Identity Crisis because as interesting and engaging as Bizarro Superman is, this story and the layers and the elements to this story, I think just won out over that one. So let me know, did you notice the similarities between some of the characters and elements in this episode as to Marvel? Or am I just reading too much into it? Do I still have Avengers on the brain? I'm not sure. Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this episode, then please click the like button. If you want to see more episodes just like this, then hit subscribe. I have new episodes coming out every Tuesday and Thursday at least. Sometimes I throw in an extra one. And so if this sounds like something that you want to see, then hit the subscribe button, as I had already said. And next up, we have the episode Nighttime. So you don't want to miss that. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'm Andy Knode. I'll see you soon.